Good morning. Welcome to another video. My name is Musahib bin Umar and this is my YouTube channel. So in this video, I'm going to discuss the extension or the descriptions of the 6 fundamental rights which I have discussed in the last video. I believe in the last video, I gave you some insights and I gave you some important points, like for example, what are the fundamental rights and how it can be, how it is implemented, and what is the Magna Carta of the Constitution, and like some basic questions, the answers to the basic question. Now, what are the 6 fundamental rights, especially? So now in this video, I'm going to discuss the 6 fundamental rights in detail. So not 6 in detail, it will take too much of time. Like some articles, for example, we know that from Article 13 to Article 35, it deals with the extent. It deals and especially specifically about the Constitution, as specifically about the fundamental rights. So I'm going to discuss each article one by one. Okay. So before getting into it, I would like to add one point. In the last video, I have discussed that there is something called as amendability of fundamental rights. Of course, fundamental rights can be amended, and the article 31 of the Constitution, that is there is something called as right to property. Actually, originally we had 7 fundamental rights, the 7 sections of fundamental rights. Now we only have the 6 categories of fundamental rights. The 7th, the amended Constitution, fundamental right was Article 31. It deals with the right to property. Okay, right to property means that if the government of India or state or any part of the state tries to control or take the individual's land for its own business, and the individual has the authority to rule, the right to hold his property, and the extreme superior autonomy over his property, like that. It was there, and so many like legalities about that right, like so many rights were there, so many provisions were there, but that right was now converted into a legal right. Now it is not a political right. Now it is not a fundamental right. It's just a legal right. And what's the difference between a fundamental right and the legal right? You will understand by the when I discuss the first article. So anyway, keep it aside. Now I'm going to talk the amendment number, the 44th Amendment Act of 1978. That was the amendment which made the right to property or converted it into a legal right, and now it comes under the, of course it is in the Constitution, but it's in the different part in the Article 300A. Okay, there is something there is if you read the Constitution, this mention there are so many subsections are there. So in the 300 A, section A deals with the right to property, and it's also part of, it's in the part 12 of the Constitution. Okay, so that's about the right to property, the amended fundamental right. Now it is just a legal right. Okay, now let's start with the Article 13. The first article that we are going to discuss is called as, it is not a fundamental right anyway, but it gives some kind of like a catalyst, or it gives a strong bedrock for the fundamental rights. That is the Article 13. It contains provisions for laws violating fundamental rights. For example, we have the 3 cornerstones of our democracy is legislature and executive and judiciary. Like literally we can say it is separate, but legislature and executive, it's combined, because the people who belongs to the legislature, that is the people who belongs to the parliament, that is Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha, they are the members who come out as ministers, like prime ministers, council of ministers, cabinet ministers, or state ministers, or specific additional ministers, or any other kind of ministers. All these things are similar to the state also. Okay, so these things, for example, this executive and legislature combine together, and legislature, the persons who are sitting inside the parliament and make laws for this country. So in Article 13 talks about if any kind of law that is which has been passed, or that is it's been introduced in the in the parliament, if it will check in part with the fundamental rights, if it violates any of the fundamental rights, because people can make laws, right? If that laws arbitrarily changes or scraps or anything any of the fundamental rights, then that entire act will become void or nullified. That means that much important fundamental rights is the Constitution gives. Okay, so Article 13 specifically explains about that, and Article 13 says that of the Indian Constitution declares that all laws that are inconsistent with or in derogation of any of the fundamental rights shall be void, whether it is legislative assemblies of states, or whether it is parliament. If they make any kind of laws whatever laws that violate the fundamental rights, for example, the 6 fundamental rights that is discussed in the earlier video, if any of the laws, then it becomes automatically nullified, so that no other members or the member of parliaments or any other ministers will fear, or they will not introduce a bill like that. So it's like it works like so. Fundamental rights has that much importance in our polity. So try to understand that. So the power has been conferred to the Supreme Court and the High Courts. Okay, that means that further the article declares that a constitutional amendment cannot be challenged. Okay, so if in case the fundamental rights it's violates, so they it will be checked. Who will check this? Of course, the judiciary, right? Okay, legislature makes the law and executive implements law, and if these laws has kind of a problem and it can be interpreted by the judiciary. So if any of the constitution, any of the laws which is made by the legislature like abrogates or scraps or any kind of change amends the basic fundamental rights, then the Supreme Court or the High Courts, or Supreme Court is the apex court of this country and High Court is the apex court of the state. These courts have the extreme power, the superpower to interpret those laws, and if the Supreme Court decided that this country, of course, it is unconstitutional, then it became nullified. So how this country works, and the powers which is related to the interpreting the fundamental rights, it is being mentioned in the Article 32 of the Constitution, and the powers which is conferred to the High Court to check whether the laws are inconsistent with the fundamental rights, which is under the Article 226. So now we have discussed 3 articles. Article 13 deals about if any of the laws which is made by the legislature become nullified if it violates fundamental rights. That is Article 13. Article 32 describes about the powers of Supreme Court to check whether the law's inconsistency with the Constitution and the fundamental rights, and if it is unconstitutional, of course it can be nullified and pushed down. And the Article 226 describes explains about the powers of the High Court to check the laws which is passed by the specific legislative assembly. Okay, for example, in legislative assemblies, whether it is Vidhan Sabha or whatever, the lower house or upper house, legislative council or legislative assembly, if they have done a kind of laws, then it is also can be nullified. Okay, so now let's move to the third part. Further, the article declares that a constitutional amendment cannot be challenged as it is not a law. Okay, however, the Supreme Court in the Keshwan by the case 1996 had that a constitutional amendment can be challenged if it violates basic structure, including fundamental rights. So when I was discussing the difference between the fundamental rights and the legal rights, I have told you that there is something called as a doctrine called as basic structure doctrine. If you watched my previous videos, I have discussed in any of the video, I don't know which video it was in emergency, I believe. I have discussed there is something called as a basic structure doctrine. Basic structure doctrine means there is some concepts inside our constitution. There are so many matters in our constitution cannot be amended even the government changes. For example, secularism, the word secularism, or the nature of the constitution, democracy, like that, the fundamental rights, especially fundamental rights. If any of the governments or the upcoming legislatures try to amend those laws, it cannot be changed. And so that is called as basic structure of the constitution. In 1973, the famous case called as Keshwan Bharati case, so the Supreme Court held that a constitutional amendment can be challenged if it violates basic structure, including fundamental rights. That means any of the amendments, whether it is constitutional or any of the specific acts, if it violates the fundamental rights, of course it can be challenged in the court. Okay, so that was the judgment. Okay, now let us talk about something called as writ jurisdictions. A writ is a legal order given by a court of law. What is meant by a writ? Okay, writ means nothing but if a person or if a citizen had a confrontation with the violation of his own fundamental rights, any of the 6 fundamental rights. If anybody try to suppress his fundamental rights or violates his fundamental rights, then he can approach what? The Supreme Court, right? The Supreme Court or the Supreme Court or the High Court or the lower courts, the Court of Justice, they will issue some papers, they will issue some orders. That orders is called as writs. Writs are nothing but it issues against the violation of constitutional fundamental rights. So those specific provisions or those specific orders that are called as writs, and there are so many writs are there. I will discuss everything in the the explanation of all these roots can be explained in the further video. But now, as of now, there are six roots are there: habeas corpus, mandamus, prohibition, certiorari, and five roots are there. That is habeas corpus, mandamus, prohibition, certiorari, and quo warranto. These are five roots that can be introduced by that can be ordered by the courts against the fundamental rights. If my fundamental right has been violated, I can approach the Supreme Court or like the lower courts, and they will issue some orders. That orders are named as writs, and those writs this can be different types of writs are there. There is habeas corpus, mandamus, prohibition, certiorari, and quo warranto. What are these writs? I will discuss in the upcoming videos. And the writ jurisdictions. So what are the writs can be introduced released or declared by the Supreme Courts or the courts. And the writ jurisdictions of the high courts. Everything, all Supreme Court and High Court is mentioned in Article 32 and Article 226 respectively. Okay, I believe you understood some points about that. Okay, now let us talk about the features of the fundamental rights. Okay, protected by the Constitution of fundamental rights, unlike ordinary legal rights, are protected and guaranteed by the Constitution of the country. Some of the rights are available only to the citizens, while others are available to all persons, whether citizens, foreigners, or legal persons like corporations or companies. Now here you have to understand that the right which is written like the Magna Carta of the Constitution, that is the fundamental rights, those rights is protected by the Constitution, that is called as like for example Article 12 Article 13 declares about that if anything fundamental right is violated, then it became nullified by the Supreme Courts or the courts. So that's the first thing. The second thing is called as the fundamental rights have the all rights are not available to the every person. So some fundamental rights are respective to only to the citizens of this country, and some fundamental rights are only respective to the foreigners and legal persons. Legal persons or entities. Legal entities means like companies, corporations, like partnerships or any kind of ventures. You know, they all comes under the category of legal persons or legal entities. So some fundamental rights are only to some persons or citizens or foreigners. Some fundamental rights are for all we will get some fundamental right, and some fundamental rights are only specific to citizens, only to foreigners, like that. Okay, so as of now I'm going to stop the video right now because it's already crossed the 12 marks, so 12 minutes. So my ambition was to create videos under the 10 minutes. So right now I'm stopping this video. So in the second video, the upcoming videos, I will discuss what are the different articles and explanations, and to understand the fundamentals more comprehensive. Okay, so thank you for watching my video, and if you find this really enjoying or really beneficial, please try to share. That's the first thing. The second thing is called as, if you have any comments, if you know add an advantage, add an analysis, of course you can add in the comment sections, and subscribe, notification, everything. You can do whatever you want. Okay, any improvements you need, of course you can add in the comment sections. If you have any negative comments, please come out so that I can improve myself. So thanks for watching my channel. So hope you I believe that we will see in the next video.